good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for this critical election season session, the State of Immigration in America, Citizenship Under Threat. You can watch our previous videos in this series on HIAS Pennsylvania's YouTube page, on our website, which is www.hiaspa.org, and in the video section of HIAS Pennsylvania's Facebook page. My name is Catherine Miller Wilson, and I'm the Executive Director of HIAS Pennsylvania, a nonprofit whose mission is to provide immigration legal services to low-income immigrants and refugees in Pennsylvania. One of our signature services is naturalization. The naturalization process has unsurprisingly changed over time, although the core aspects of it, attempting to ensure that new citizens understand their new country, understand the weight of the oath that they are taking, and understand and exercise their most sacred democratic gift of voting, have not. But the changes we'll talk about tonight, while not unprecedented, do reflect a return to an era that we as Americans had already decisively rejected. For example, you will hear our guest make repeated references to the term un-American, showing up in many of the executive orders and policy changes that we are facing. But we as a country went through this before, when McCarthyism led to widespread attacks on those found to be, quote, un-American, unquote, by McCarthy's acolytes. We knew then that these attacks were outrageous and ultimately and ironically un-American, in what turned out to be baseless attempts to exert power over political enemies. And history is repeating itself now. So as we listen, we should all reflect on whether we will be able to learn from history and push back against these policies, or whether we're doomed to repeat it, damaging hundreds of people's reputations and losing the ability of our country to gain critical contributors. Joining us to spell out the changes we're facing is HIAS Pennsylvania's Citizenship and Family Unification Program Manager, Lori Alexander. Lori is the perfect person to walk us through the changes, as she is HIAS Pennsylvania's longest serving staff member. Lori's been doing this work for 44 years. And
47, Kathy.
Huh?
47.
Oh my goodness, 47. I lost track. Okay, everyone that knows me knows I can't do math. I stand corrected. 47 years, and is a nationally recognized expert in her field. In her time at HIAS Pennsylvania, speaking, as she does, 5 languages, Lori has helped thousands of low-income newcomers in Pennsylvania take that final step to integration. It's a privilege and an honor to host her. So Lori, we're going to get started with some of the basics to give the audience some grounding and context. And while we're talking, the audience should feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section, not the chat. And also a quick reminder, if your question is about a personal situation and you're seeking legal help, please don't ask your question during this webinar because we want to protect your privacy, but do call us at 215-832-0100 during our intake hours, which are Wednesday mornings and Thursday afternoons.
I'm sorry, Kathy, 0900.
Oh, 0900. Okay, thank you. So the first question, Lori, for you is, what is a green card, and how long does a green card holder have to live in the United States before they're eligible to become a citizen?
Okay, a green card. First of all, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. A green card is another name for a permanent resident card. It gives somebody permission to live and stay in the United States indefinitely, and permission to work, and have most of the same privileges as a citizen. There are some differences, but the green cards do not expire. Many people think they do because it does have an expiration date written on there. The status doesn't expire. Basically, the plastic version of the card just needs to be updated every 10 years for security reasons. So we get a lot of calls now, especially people are really nervous with all the changes going on. And so I got to do something fast. My green card is expiring. And we explain to them that you're not losing your status and try to calm them down. But this has brought a lot of people calling us to do something about it. And one of the suggestions is, why not become a citizen if you're eligible? You have to have your green card in most cases 5 years. The date of residence is listed right on the card, resident since. There's an exception for people who are married for 3 years to a U.S. citizen of 3 years of residence, but for the majority of people, it's 5 years from the date on their green card.
Okay, and just a side question that I'm sure everyone in the audience has. Why is it called a green card?
I can't hear you very well, Kathy.
Oh, a side question. Can you hear me now?
No, not what I can.
Ugh. My sound seems to have gone out. How is this? Is this better?
No, can everybody else hear her, or is it from my end? No, it's not just me. Yeah, people can't hear you,
Try
Kathy.
this.
That's better.
Is that better?
That's
Okay.
perfect. Great.
Okay.
So
So the
what was your
question,
second question?
yeah, the question that I'm sure is on everybody's mind is why is it called a green card?
Okay. Many, many, many years ago, the cards were actually green in color. I've actually seen a couple of old ones over my years at HIAS, but they've changed. They were blue at one time, white with a blue stripe. They're just changing constantly and putting, different markings on there for security purposes. But I don't think they're going to go back to being green, but the name stuck. I've always was taught put the word green card in quotes because it's not really an official name. But I see now that the government, the USCIS, calls them green cards when they write to people. So it's an accepted term now.
That's very funny. And is there a difference between a green card and legal permanent resident status, or is that the same thing?
That's the same thing, just another name for it.
Okay.
People are called lawful permanent residents or legal permanent residents who have a green card.
Terrific. So, what are some of the rights and benefits that naturalized citizens gain that green card holders don't have?
Okay, there are a number of things. I'll just go through a few of them. Really important one, they get the right to vote. They can get a U.S. passport and travel as a U.S. citizen, where you actually have more protections overseas from the U.S. embassies if there are problems as a citizen instead of a green card holder. There are relatives that you can petition for to bring to the United States if you have citizenship that you can't do with a green card, bringing parents, for example. Government jobs that require citizenship, or companies that have contracts with the government often will require citizenship. I think, but one of the most important ones for many, many of our clients is the sense of security they get by being citizens and not having to worry so much, can they get picked up or have problems with the government? But we'll talk a little bit more later, I think, about denaturalization. So I can't say it's total security anymore.
Right. And I also would venture to say, even though this is skipping ahead a little bit, but, even if it's not about denaturalization, but if you are a citizen, have you been picked up? Have you heard stories of people being picked up as citizens?
There definitely have been some in the news about that.
Right,
Yep.
right. Have any of your clients who've naturalized been picked up? Have anyone?
No, I
Okay.
haven't had that. Thank goodness.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. How long does the citizenship process normally take, and what does it involve?
Okay. In Philadelphia, we've been pretty lucky. Our waiting time has been shorter than in a lot of cities, but recently we noticed that it started slowing down again. From the time that we actually file the papers, it's now taking about 6 months or so to get an interview. If everything goes well, then it takes another month or two to have their swearing in ceremony, called the oath ceremony. So the process is that we prepare the applications after screening people for any kind of legal or English proficiency issues, because people need to be able to demonstrate that they can read, write, speak, and understand basic English, and they are tested. And they will also have to be able to study 100 civics questions, and they'll be given 10 questions randomly chosen by the computers. So we want to make sure that our clients are going to be able to do that. There are special exceptions for people who are not able to do that. There's what we call language waivers. If you have your green card a certain number of years and you're a certain age, you can use an interpreter for your interview. For example, if you're 55 or older and have your green card 15 years, then you can use an interpreter. And the youngest exception is age 50, and then you need your green card a little longer, 20 years. But what we're seeing a lot of are a different kind of exceptions, medical exceptions, people who are not able to learn English and or civics because of serious medical, mental, or developmental problems. And there's a special form. We work very closely with the doctors preparing this that explains what their diagnoses are, how they got those diagnoses, and how they prevent them from being able to learn language or civics. Usually people goes hand in hand. We're talking about things like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, serious things. Sometimes a combination of smaller things, but immigration is tough on them. They want to make sure people are not just trying to get through without studying. So we do a lot of work on that in our office.
There's a question in the Q&A. Can people on a humanitarian visa get a green card?
I'm not sure exactly which humanitarian visas you're talking about. It's hard for me to answer that, not knowing exactly what you mean.
So this is an opportunity, right, to explain to our audience there's actually multiple what I think the public would call humanitarian visas. The most common are people who have gotten a grant of asylum or who have obtained refugee status.
Yeah.
And Lori, refugees and people who got asylum, they're eligible. Is that correct?
Yeah, after 1 year, they can apply for a green card.
Okay.
So they're pretty basic.
Right. And then another humanitarian status would be somebody who got temporary protected status. I would call that humanitarian because temporary protected status is given to people whose countries of origin are experiencing humanitarian disasters of one kind or another, like an earthquake or war has broken out. But if somebody has temporary protected status, are they able eventually to get a green card?
Well, as the name says, it's temporary. So there's no path to a green card through the particular status. If they find another way later on through a family member or some other way, they might be able to do it that way, but not based on that status alone.
Okay. Another humanitarian status that I would label humanitarian, but I'm not sure that our government does, is deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA. That status was given to kids who were brought to this country undocumented by their parents when they were too young to make the choice. As I think many in our audience know, in 2012, President Obama entered an executive order giving those kids temporary status or temporary deferred action, meaning that they could temporarily stay here and get work authorization, but it's only a temporary status. So again, I'm going to ask you, Lori, is there a pathway to citizenship for those folks?
As you said before, unless there's another way that they could qualify, that doesn't lead to anything. And that can be terminated at any time, which is what we're really afraid of.
Okay. And then some other types of humanitarian statuses, special immigrant juvenile status is a status that can be provided or a benefit that can be given to children who have fled abuse and neglect from their country of origin. And so therefore it's not safe for them to return. Are you aware whether those kids,
they can definitely apply for a green card.
They can.
Yes.
And then finally, trafficking visas. These are visas that are provided to victims of either sex trafficking or labor trafficking. And are they eligible?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. I don't want to give a definite answer and give wrong information. But there are many other categories. People like being let in with special parole from Afghanistan, Ukraine. And the problem is most of those don't lead to any green card.
Right, right. So, but it's a really great and important question because it reveals one of the major problems with our immigration system. It's very, very difficult for people to legally enter the country in the first place. And to the extent that there are a variety of remedies available to some people who fit the category, those remedies don't lead to a pathway to citizenship. So it leaves them kind of vulnerable and in a position where they have to renew every couple of years. They often have to pay fees every couple of years. If they travel outside of the United States when they have this limbo status, they might have a hard time getting back into the United States. So having this large variety of remedies is not helpful if it keeps you as essentially a non-citizen and no way to become a citizen, so that you're always vulnerable to exploitation and challenge. So thank you for the question. So moving on. So what is the good character standard and how has that changed under the current administration?
Okay, that's a very good question because there's been a lot of changes just within the last month. One of the requirements to become a citizen, in addition to certain residence requirements and the English and civics, you have to show that you have been a person of good moral character for the 5-year period before applying for citizenship. That's always been there. The officer can see if the person has, during that 5 years, if they've been arrested, if they're not paying child support, questions like that can help determine if they're a person of good character, paying their taxes. If all those things are fine, it's been understood that that person is a person of good moral character for naturalization purposes. And what came out last month is immigration saying just because you haven't had any problems, that doesn't mean you're a person of good character. You've got to prove to us the positive factors now, your contributions to the country. And this has never happened before. So we are told, we don't know if they're going to ask everybody, but they have the right to ask people to bring in documentation showing they've paid their taxes, that they have stable employment, that they do volunteer work in their community, that they attend a church or another religious organization, have affidavits from witnesses who can attest to their good character. It's overkill when they've already established a good character by not having anything bad. And for us, it would have great implications if they're going to make everybody do this. It's a lot more paperwork and a lot more time to prepare these cases, to get the document package for them to go to give to immigration. We would have to spend a lot more time preparing them for the interview to be able to handle questions about it. It's just another barrier that the current administration is putting up to prevent people from applying for citizenship or to discourage them from doing it, just making it harder and making them afraid that what if I don't pass that standard? So it's a really big change. That hasn't happened before.
So an additional barrier, a listener asks, what does a green card cost?
Really depends on what basis you are getting it. Refugee, for example, does not have to pay anything. An asylee, meaning someone who received asylum, which is very similar to refugee status, it's over $1,000. And for most other categories, you do have a full fee. There might be some that where you can get a fee waiver, but it really depends on what basis you're applying for the green card.
And the $1,000 for the person who got asylum, that's from the passage of HR 1, isn't it? I mean, was that always true?
No, that fee's always been there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fees have gone up not that long ago, but no, that fee was there. Many of our clients who are applying based on asylum, their income is low enough that they can qualify for a full fee waiver, but not everybody. And so if you have a family of 4 people and you're working, so your income is not low enough to qualify for the fee waiver, that's an awful lot of money to have to come up with. It has to be, the income for the whole household has to be under 150% of the federal poverty guidelines, which is not very much. So,
And I understand from HR 1, many fee waiver processes were eliminated. Does it still exist for naturalization though?
Yes, for naturalization it does, and a category opened up last year for a reduced fee. So your income can be definitely higher than the fee waiver standard, and you pay 50% of the filing fee for naturalization, which is $760. So instead, you would pay the 380, and the full fee waivers will pay zero. So they
Okay,
get a
but I
little
do,
break at least with the reduced fee, because we have many, many people who are filing for the reduced fee.
yeah, and that's good to know. I know that I worry with the increased scrutiny on good moral character and the need to show what you contribute. I
Mhm.
worry now that if you need to file for either a fee waiver or a fee reduction, it's going to be counted against you in your
Yeah,
bid for
it
naturalization.
it could. People before this all happened used to say, "Oh, is it going to look bad for me if I file for a fee waiver?" We definitely have had people ask that. It's never hurt anybody, but now we don't know what's going to be. Yeah, and some of the people that we're talking about good moral character, I didn't mention, we have uh, older people who live with their children. They're not working, so they're not paying taxes. They just live quietly at home. They don't really are not in good health to go out and do volunteer work or anything. So how do you prove that they're people of good character other than a couple statements from people who know them? Is that going to be sufficient? Because they're looking to see what people are contributing to American society. And for older people, we don't know how tough they're going to be on them. So it's pretty frightening.
We're going to have to make the argument that they're contributing to the mental health and welfare of their younger applicants for
Well,
citizenship.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are cases where they're the babysitters, so that's
Yeah,
something, but not everybody's in that position. We have a lot of people who are pretty sick who can't, do things like that.
right. Now, we have a listener who I think may have heard or read some of the headlines. The question is, are any 2025 green cards actually being processed at this point?
Yes, yes. We've had a hold though with the refugees and asylees. Those I'm not sure if they're being processed, but like for family-based immigration, for example, if you marry an American citizen and they file for you, that's an example of family-based. Yeah, there shouldn't be a problem with those people getting approved. And there's employment-based immigration, which we don't do at our agency. The private attorneys generally do that. That should also be proceeding without any problems. So yeah, I think refugees and asylees are the big ones because they want to keep vetting them.
Okay. And then there's a question that, oh, that just disappeared. Uh, sorry. Okay. um, Okay, so there's a question about the differences in Medicaid and CHIP benefits for those who are asylum seekers versus green card holders versus citizens. And I think that's coming from, again, the changes that were made by HR 1, right?
Yeah.
So it used to be true that if you had asylum, you were eligible for Medicaid. And now that's changed. Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually was talking to our manager, and we call the asylee outreach project we have, working with people who've been granted asylum. Those people are no longer going to be eligible for Medicaid until they get their green cards. And she was saying there's families who are now with children who need medical coverage and things. So it's really serious. And the big problem is there's been tremendous delays in asylees' applications for green cards being adjudicated. This was even before this year. We have cases that are pending a number of years. So if the time to adjudicate those is going to be years, they're not going to get the medical coverage for who knows when. So it's really, really serious for those families right now.
And it's coming from both sides. So they're no longer eligible for health insurance. And also now, because of HR 1, they have to pay $100 a year every
Yeah.
year that their asylum petition is pending.
Well, that's for people who are pending.
Right,
But
right,
they wouldn't be able to get medical once they're granted
right,
asylum. They were able to until now.
right, right.
But
And
now
now,
they,
and
yeah.
now that they have asylum, they still can't get health insurance. And then once they get a green card, can they get health insurance?
Yes, yes. If they're low income, of course.
Okay.
But as I said, that can take years.
Right, right, right,
And if they're
right.
not adjudicating those cases at all for now, the backlog gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
right, right. And just a note about the backlog. So I think a lot of people, the public has heard in general about immigration backlogs being huge. At the same time, the current administration has both fired a number of immigration judges and then crowed in a report about the fact that they adjudicated, I'm putting that in quotes, many, many more cases than the prior administration. And that's simply because they dismissed them without a hearing.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's not actually adjudication.
yeah.
Um, okay, so here's a question. Have you heard anything about testing English comprehension by having applicants write an essay?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk to try to redesign the naturalization test. And one of the versions had people reading paragraphs and then writing essays like that. Right now, that's not happening. And I think there was enough advocacy from groups like ours and other organizations nationwide. That's not happening now. The big change that probably will happen with the test is they're going to have to learn not 100 questions, but 128. And instead of having to answer 6 correctly at the interview out of 10, they will have to answer 12 out of 20, I guess it is, something like that. So that's the only change right now that seems to going to happen. So the essays and all that have been put aside for the moment, but doesn't mean they're not going to happen later.
Right,
Anything to make it harder for people.
right. There was a question, military lawyers may be serving as immigration judges now.
Yeah.
Yes, there was an executive order that passed that said now you don't have to um, be an immigration, sorry, you don't have to be somebody with immigration experience to
Yeah.
be an immigration judge.
They want to
And
get rid of the
so,
ones that do have the experience.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, because the
Hmm.
ones that do have the experience know what the law says, and why would we
Yeah.
care about that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah. Um, okay. Does the delay in getting medical coverage prevent children from being able to go to school if they can't get the required vaccinations? Um, I'm not sure. I mean, well, let me scratch that. It doesn't, because the children can get vaccinations from federally qualified healthcare centers for as long as there are federally qualified healthcare centers. We worry that that with this administration, the funding for those FQHCs is going to go away. But right now, those FQHCs are kind of the last points where people who are uninsured can go for care.
Our city health centers in Philadelphia, they federally funded?
Yes.
That's what you're
Mhm.
referring to. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're talking about that today as an option for some of the asylee kids. But the waiting time to get an appointment is very, very long. So probably until that's done, they probably could not get into school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're well overloaded, the city health centers.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, there's another question. Are there any private foundations or nonprofit organizations helping cover nutrition and medical needs and other benefits? So yes and no. I'll kind of move backwards. There are food banks available certainly in Philadelphia and outside of Philadelphia that are points of access for any low income person. They don't ask for immigration status. But we just recently we've talked to a food bank that we partner with often because they get a lot of immigrants, and they have expressed alarm that immigrants aren't coming because they're too afraid. So we're talking about trying to figure out a way that we can get the food bank food to our clients without having them leave their homes. It will involve volunteers. And if that's something you're interested in, we'll talk a little bit at the end about what you can do to help. But the fear has really gripped the community, as you can imagine. And so people aren't going to work, they're not going to school, they're not going to church, they're not going to food banks because they're afraid that they're going to be swept up. Um, In terms of private foundations, absolutely. We get a lot of private foundation support, and so do many of the Philadelphia nonprofits that we work with. Um, and there are Philadelphia nonprofits that deal specifically with nutrition. MANA comes to mind. And MANA gets funding from a number of private foundations. So that's the good news. Is it going to be enough? Absolutely not. It wasn't enough when people were eligible for public benefits. Now that public benefits are being taken away, the gap between the need, I should say, is going to grow even more. So we are going to see a poverty gap in this country that is so enormous. I'm kind of bracing myself for another Great Depression. But that's a seminar for another day. um, so, a related question, are people afraid to go to the citizenship interview sites due to potential ICE presence?
I haven't had that happen, but we just heard recently in the news that USCIS, not even ICE, will be present at the offices when people are coming in for citizenship. And I believe they said with guns. And so it's just starting. What are people going to stop applying and all? It's very possible because they're really scared they could get picked up right on the spot. So
Yeah,
we
so
have a mixture
USCIS,
of people, it's going up and down. We have at one point we had more people applying for citizenship because they felt that that would be the safest thing for them, not to have to worry about their green card. But then as more and more stuff comes out, people are getting too afraid to do it. So our numbers go up and down, and it's I think it's a lot of people are just don't want to show themselves at immigration at the USCIS office anymore.
right.
So it's very scary for them.
And Lori, I know that for our other legal staff that have hearings in other places, they've been asking for permission to have a virtual hearing to not make the client show up. Is that something that's come up with you?
Now, we are allowed to actually represent clients remotely.
Mm-hmm.
They will call me and put me on speakerphone, and I can participate in interviews for citizenship and for green cards too. But with the courts, it's totally different, and I'm not sure exactly who can do that.
Okay. So, so yeah, so just to further expand on what Lori just said about USCIS now becoming armed. So there was an executive order that came out, I think it was either last week or early this week, that said USCIS officers would be deputized by ICE and would now
Yeah,
have the power to detain people, which is
yeah.
like nonsensical since they also have the power to provide to adjudicate
Yeah.
naturalization cases.
I
So,
remember months ago that when in the news, a big story about somebody who was pulled out of their citizenship interview and taken away by ICE. The officer reported, and ICE came over and took them right out of their interview.
mm,
So people started to get afraid to apply.
yeah, yeah. Um, Another question, have you heard or seen of delays in oath scheduling?
No, they're
The
still coming pretty quickly. I haven't seen a change in that. The
Okay,
interview processing time has gone up a few months to get an interview.
okay.
Uh, that's most likely due to not enough officers. I know that they had a vacancy in the supervisory naturalization office, the section chief, and I couldn't reach her, and she wasn't answering my emails when she usually did. And I finally got to someone who told me, "Oh, she took the buyout and left from the government, as did a number of other officers." So they might be short-staffed, which is causing the delays. I don't think the volume of citizenship has increased that much that it would cause this delay, but I would guess it's more the lack of officers to schedule them with.
Another question, that our listener had the privilege of attending an oath ceremony for one of her students who passed their test. It's her understanding that children born outside of the US automatically become citizens once the parent becomes a citizen. But now she's hearing that they have to apply for a certificate for each child for quite a high fee, which is
Okay.
correct.
Well, they don't have to apply for a certificate. Those children are citizens, whether they get a certificate or not. It's just to have documentation they would apply. But let me just say, not all children are automatic. They have to be under the age of 18 when the parent becomes a citizen, one parent. It has to be a parent that they're living with. They're in the legal and physical custody of that parent, and they have to have a green card. So if all those three things are met, then they do derive. It's called derivative citizenship. And some people apply for U.S. passports instead of doing the certificate. It's cheaper. But the one good thing is that there is a full fee waiver for the certificate of citizenship for the kids. So I really encourage my clients who are not that long in the country to go and take advantage of that, because I said if you put that off in a few years, you'll be moving up the employment scale, and your income will be higher, and you might not qualify for that fee waiver. It was 1160. Now it's I believe 1200 something. It's gone up. It's one of the most expensive fees we have. I don't know why. And these kids are citizens, so I guess maybe it's a low priority for immigration. But yeah, if they don't want to do that now, they can do that at any time in their life, and they could be past the age of 18 when they apply for a certificate, as long as the events creating the derivation took place before the child was 18. They're citizens whether they do anything or not, but they're going to need proof of their status at times in their life. So it definitely is worth either doing the passport or certificate to have some kind of document for the kids.
And especially now when apparently overnight we've become a country where you have to show your papers.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah. So, um, okay. So there's a question, why aren't refugee green card applications being processed?
Uh,
Um,
we mentioned that a little bit earlier, that refugees and asylees, they're being vetted over and over to make sure that they don't they qualify. They're not doing anything un-American or against the government, and they're just kind of put on hold for now. We had people scheduled and then they were descheduled. So I don't know when that's going to start again, but it's never happened like that before.
hmm. Okay, so it's a mystery,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Well, there's not a
Uh,
lot of logical explanations to many of the things being done. So
right.
yeah.
I also want to just remind people, or tell them if you didn't know, we're actually right now not receiving refugees. So here's who we're receiving. We're receiving refugees who were supposed to travel before the president paused the entire program on January 20th. And the reason for that is because several national organizations sued the government and got a temporary order ordering them to allow those people who were cleared from travel to come to the country. So that's a small set of people, but they are coming. The other group of people are Afghan special immigrant visa holders. So those are Afghans that helped our military. They are coming, they're not refugees, they're called Afghan SIVs, but they are to be given the same services as refugees. They're to be treated like refugees. So Afghan SIVs are coming into the country. And then finally, a small group of white South Africans are coming into the country
As refugees.
as refugees. So, what does that mean? The United Nations does not consider them to be refugees because they don't meet the international definition of refugee. But the president, by executive order, has said he is going to allow these people to come in and be provided with refugee services, and be given the equivalent of refugee status. So, so those people are coming in. So those three groups that I mentioned are coming in. Otherwise, there are no refugees whatsoever that are coming in because the program remains paused and the litigation is ongoing. So, so that's something else to keep in mind when we're talking about refugees and things that are happening with them. We're talking about refugees that came in years ago, because for the most part, refugees aren't coming in. Um, Okay. Oh, so a listener asks about the list of questions that immigrants have to answer on the for the civics exam. Are
Hmm.
those widely accessible?
Yes. They're published on the USCIS website. So
Mhm.
I tell my clients, if you study hard and you learn them all, there are no surprise questions. The officers have to use those 100 questions that they study, and the computer randomly picks out 10 that the officer asks. So if you do your homework and you learn those, it's not hard. If your English is decent enough to be able to learn
Right.
them. Yeah,
Right. So if any of you want to help somebody study,
that'd be
you
great.
can get the questions. Like Lori said, there's 100 of them. They're available on the USCIS website. And if the best thing to do is to have the person be able to answer every single question, even though it's a lot, it's 100, because in the interview they'll be asked 10 of them and you don't know which 10. So. Um, okay. I see another question. Are asylum seekers being allowed in? So, sort of.
Well, to get asylum is the act of applying for what's similar to refugee status from within the United States. People who are here already, who might have come in as a tourist or on a student visa, or even I think with people without inspection. That's from within the United States. So you don't get let in as an asylee. You would apply for refugee status overseas, which is very similar, a little bit different sections of the law. But yeah, that would have to be for people who are here apply for asylum.
Yeah. And so there are people that are still coming into the country, but it's much harder for them when they get to the border. They have to show a border patrol officer that they have what's called a credible fear of persecution. And there's a lot of discretion about whether the officer agrees. If the officer doesn't think they have a credible fear, they're not allowed into the country. So then
Yeah, I
it's a
think I
problem.
misunderstood the
Yeah,
caller that
yeah.
it was, people approaching the border who want to apply for asylum. Yeah,
Right,
sorry
right,
about
right,
that.
right. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so there's another question. What happens if people with refugee status are not able to get a green card because of the delays that you were just talking about, or even because of some kind of rejection? What status do they have at that point, like while they're waiting, or if for some reason the green card is rejected, like are they still considered a refugee and are they safe in the country, or what happens?
Yeah, there's considered applicants for permanent residence, and they're refugees. Yeah, they are safe.
Okay, good to know.
Mhm.
So they're safe while they're waiting, and if they're rejected, it's likely because of some clerical error and it can be fixed and they can reapply. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if many get rejected for clerical errors. If the officer decides that there was something in their background, or maybe they've had some criminal issues or whatever, there are times that they're rejected, but doesn't happen too often.
But if there's a criminal issue, then are they deportable even though they have
Yeah, they
refugee
might be.
status?
They might be.
Right. Okay. All right. So they're safe with the delay, but not necessarily safe if they're rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. I mean, not great, but just the truth. All right, another question is claiming violence against women, oops, um, status still possible to get a green card? So just for our audience, the Violence Against Women Act provides an immigration benefit for victims of domestic violence who've been abused here in the United States. And they can petition for an immigration benefit to be able to stay and become independent from their abuser. And so I think what the listener is asking, if you've gone that route and you got an immigration benefit pursuant to the Violence Against Women Act, is that a pathway to citizenship? Can you get a green card and then naturalize?
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say, because people don't think about it, I just had a client who had a citizenship interview this week who we had assisted, and it's a man who had received status under we call it VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. They should really change the name, because not too often, but we've had a few men over the time who were able to prove the domestic violence at home. And that's still all available. That application for the green card and later citizenship, nothing's changed with that.
Another question, if you were an Afghan refugee and were granted quote unquote permanent asylum, which I think what the listener means, basically they were paroled into the country in the evacuation of Afghanistan, which was a status that was given to them because there wasn't enough time to give them refugee status. Once they came here, they petitioned for asylum, they got asylum. Can
Mhm.
you stay in the US even if you can't get a green card because of the delay? I mean, while you're
Yes.
waiting.
Yeah, they continue to remain in asylee status until decisions made on their green card application.
So, what are neighborhood
That's
investigations?
exactly the one I wanted you to ask because it's such a horrible, horrible thing. Neighborhood investigations are also known as personal investigations, and they haven't been used since 1991, and it was brought back now. This is when the immigration officers can go out to talk to your neighbors, to your coworkers, to your employers, to ask about your good moral character. And you can imagine not everybody is on good terms with all of their neighbors. Neighbor, they might have a bad relationship. Their neighbors might not like immigrants. And if they say bad things to the immigration officer, that's going to really, really hurt the chances for citizenship. And we're just really outraged about this. And especially going into a place of employment, people's coworkers don't necessarily know what their immigration status is. They might assume they're citizens. They don't know anything about it, and to ask them questions like that, it's a terrible thing. um I haven't seen we've never seen that in so many years, and I don't even think it was done to be on large scale previously. So this is just another tactic, but it's a scary one. More and more everything feels like totalitarianism to me as we see all these things going on.
Right, right. Um, well, so a related question, what does
Yeah.
denaturalization mean?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, denaturalization is the process where the federal government tries to take back the citizenship of someone who naturalized here. Um, it's a rare thing. It's been rarely used over the years. They're trying to say that somebody got naturalized who wasn't eligible at the time it was granted. And it has to be very, very serious things. We're talking like genocide, espionage. There were Nazis who were denaturalized here, some years back. I mean, they're pretty serious, serious things, and it's very hard to prove it. In fact, from 1990 to 2017, there were only 11 cases per year. And under the current administration, the number of referrals to the court to try to denaturalize people has increased by 600%. It doesn't mean they're going to be able to prove it, but it's another scare tactic. And they're trying to get people who had minor infractions or who expressed views that were critical of the administration, even if they weren't found guilty. They're going after people like that. So it's just a way. It's a targeted campaign to discourage people from pursuing naturalization, and it's very another frightening one. It's terrible.
It's
And
really terrible. And I want to add, HIAS, for those of you that don't know, HIAS Pennsylvania, HIAS stands for Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. And although we serve everybody from all faiths and backgrounds and have done so since the 70s, our roots from 1882 are we were founded to provide help for Jews who were fleeing persecution. I myself am Jewish, and so is Lori. And I just want to be really clear that one of the things that the executive order talks about is investigating social media posts, et cetera, to see if there's any anti-Semitic remarks or postings. And I can say quite clearly that this is not anything that helps the Jews. This kind of elevating or claiming that anti-Semitism is the end all and be all that's going to prevent you from being an American, and at the same time, getting rid of affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and not counting all of the discrimination that happens on a daily basis with all kinds of other people against Muslims, against against people of color, against Latinos. You know, it's a really sinister thing that the administration is doing by naming anti-Semitism and then making Jews a target for, you know, it's really diabolical, I think, and anti-Semitic. So anyway, well, we have 4 minutes left. So in 4 minutes, I'll answer this last question. Which court hears a denaturalization case? Is it an immigration judge or a federal court? I'll answer that. It would start in front of an immigration judge, but it can be appealed to a federal court and likely will be. That's where ultimately it will go up to the federal courts. Tell us what birthright citizenship.
Yeah, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution guarantees citizenship to every child born, and it's quoted, within the jurisdiction of the United States. To amend that, the Constitution would have to be changed, with a 2/3 majority of the House and the Senate. I mean, we know it's not an easy thing to change the Constitution. But this government now, this administration used an executive order signed on January 20th, the first day, trying to end birthright citizenship for kids who were born to undocumented parents, which goes completely against the Constitution that says anybody who was born here is automatically a citizen. There was a lawsuits filed. Correct me, Kathy, if I'm wrong, but the courts granted a preliminary injunction stopping the executive order on August 7th, I believe. And I think they're still deciding if the executive order violates the Constitution. So it's not over yet, but the administration does not have the authority to change the Constitution like that just because they want to. So it can affect an awful lot of people if it's removed from the Constitution.
Yeah. And I'll just add, I mean, Lori's correct. It's currently pending in the court. But I will say, like, virtually every legal expert that's written about this, and of course, there's been a lot that's been published since the executive order came out, agrees that it's completely unconstitutional. So it's somewhat ridiculous. And so thank you so much, Lori, for your critical work and for sharing your expertise with the naturalization process. And your insights and facts about it. We've run out of time, but if you have any additional questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, you can feel free to email me at cmillerwilson@hiaspa.org. I will try to respond or forward them to Lori for response. A recording of this program will be posted on our website, again, at www.hiaspa.org, and our Facebook page. And we urge you to share the recording with those who couldn't attend tonight's program, because the more people that know the facts, the better off everybody is. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.